Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Greetings from the Remnant of the House of Israel. I am Hebron ben Bilal, coming back at you on this Sabbath, just to give you some basic information. And as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about tithing in the New Testament. It's going to be part one. I'm going to do a two-parter. But this week we're going to just deal with the basics about tithing in regards to the New Testament. I was recommended or asked to do this by a couple of reasons. One, my brother Tony had asked me in regard to tithing in the New Testament. A couple weeks back, I hadn't had the opportunity to sit down and actually do a video about it, but I decided I would do it today. Like I told you all last week that I would get on top of this topic. I don't want to take up too much time on this topic because it's a very simplistic topic. It's simplistic, but I want to break it into two parts. This week, I want to direct all my attention to the Christian community in regard to tithing 10% and all of that. The reason I want to do that, number one, is because of my brother and the questions he was asking me in regard to tithing. And number two, because of the fact that my wife, when she came into the knowledge of the truth, this is the vehicle that was used by Yahweh to bring her to the truth. And this was one of the first questions that she ever asked me in regard to, spiritual matters when she came to me when I was incarcerated and started asking me about tithing, how do I feel about tithing, the church, and I broke it down really simplistically. Before we do that, man, once again, this is the Remnant of the House of Israel. If you haven't already, go to the Facebook page, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. We upload videos at least every Sabbath where we'll break down something that's either left in the comments, a question that's been posed to me throughout the week, or just a topic that I just randomly picked. Once again, this is a community where we just teach the rudimentary basics. We don't get into a whole bunch of complex subjects and topics that you would have to really have a high level of knowledge in regard to the Bible and Torah to comprehend. We just deal with the basics. And this is one of those particular topics that we are dealing with on a basic fundamental front today. But first I would like to give a shout out to this sister here and promote her business on this particular site. The sister makes jewelry. She makes all type of different things. As you can see, these particular things that she makes right here, that's her Facebook page where you can go on and check her out and see some of the stuff that she does, man. As you can see, these are the latest bracelets that she made. She was promoting them I think it was last week before last. And she sent some through Messenger. I ended up checking them out, looking at them. My wife likes these type of things. So we went ahead and actually gave her some business. And I just wanted to promote her because of her business acumen, because of the service, because of the quality of the product, and the customer service. She's really kind, polite. She really went above and beyond when she sent the product. And it's just really the right thing to do, man. Support each other as Israelites. And most of the time, this is where we can find the things that we seek after anyway. And like I say, this sister here, this is her information. This is just a small example of some of the things she does. She does bracelets, earrings. Like I say, you got to go on there and kind of look for yourself. As for myself, me and my wife actually purchased this for my wife. Like I say, about 2 weeks ago. It's a really nice product, man. Sturdy. Like I say, the sister sent it. It was wrapped. She sent a card with it. How she had it wrapped was very professional. I believe that she does it out of her home, man. Look her up. Maybe you can find something that interests you, that you might be able to find. And if you don't support her, if you don't find anything on there that you particularly care for, just support her. Give her a shout out on your platforms, and try to promote her business as we should, as Israelites one with another. And you don't have to be an Israelite to go on to a conscious Israelite to go onto the sister's page, man, and kind of peruse and see what you might like to get. So Give her a shout out. And this goes for anybody. This is not just this sister. If you have some ideas, or if you have an actual business, you have some type of nonprofit that you got going on, a charitable cause, and send it to me, man. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. If I find it to be worthy, and not all of it is gonna be worthy, man. So if I find it to be worthy, I'll give it a shout out, man, and I will actually give you a play. You know what I'm saying? I'll actually shop on your site. Actually, my wife bought some headgear from, can't remember, it was another site she bought 4 wraps from. So we try to just, keep it amongst Israelites, especially since we do have brothers and sisters out there who are doing the right thing, creating businesses and trying to generate revenue for themselves, their communities, and for their families. So without further ado, man, let's jump into this topic. And about tithing. And once again, the reason for this particular topic is because my brother asked me about it first. Me and him had kind of had a conversation back and forth, and I had set my mind. I've done something on this before, but it was a little intricate. It was a little deep. It was a little more information, which I'm going to give basic information today, and just address first tithing, as you can see, in the New Testament. And does tithing actually exist in the New Testament? But before I do that, the first thing I'm going to do is an extended challenge. And I generally don't extend challenges because I don't debate. I don't like getting into those particular things. But I'm going to extend a challenge this morning nonetheless. I'm going to extend a challenge for any, and this, once again, any, I don't care who it is, your pastor, your bishop, your cousin, your second, third cousin, you yourself, whoever it is that's listening to this, any individual, I challenge you. I will listen. I extend a $500 challenge right now. I will cash app you. This is not me bearing a falsehood on this page this morning, on a Shabbat morning. I extend a $500 challenge for anyone who can go in to this book here. Don't into this book and show me where 10%. The 10% of the tithe is in the New Testament, where it exists and where your early church fathers told you to tithe 10%. Actually, I'll take it a step further. Show me tithing in the New Testament. Show me where you guys were, because you say things change, you no longer have to follow the old statutes and commandments. Show me in the New Testament where you were ordered to pay tithes. And before you start, because some of you are learned, before you go to let me see, first 2 Corinthians chapter 9, don't do it. That's not tithing. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 9, read it from verse 8 and 9. I mean chapter 9 and 10. Or no, let's back up. First, 2 Corinthians started chapter 8, and read chapter 9. None of that has to do with tithing. If you look in there, because this is the place that your pastor uses to say God loves a cheerful giver. Give as much as you can. See, he says it right here. God loves a cheerful giver when he's passing around that collection plate. If you look, nowhere in there does it speak of tithes. What that actually is in that particular place is, I like to call it crowdfunding, since I've learned about the concept of crowdfunding. And that's what it basically is, to give you a sense of what they're doing in that particular place in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and chapter 9. They're crowdfunding. And I'm going to show you that is also an Old Testament principle. So don't go there and say, see, they were tithing here. No, they weren't. Show me where it says that they were tithing. It says nothing about tithing, but I will show you where it was a free will offering, a willing offering. They say it in there, and this is a Old Testament commandment that you can freely give. And this is one of the reasons Paul said, Rabbi Shaul Paul said that Yahweh or God loves a cheerful giver, because you got to remember, tithing is a commandment, it's a law, it's a statute. So understanding in this particular instance, there's no cheerful, willing, cheerful giving in that particular instance. There's a set amount in any instance when you're giving a tithe. So this eliminates this from being a tithe because there's a set amount. But the pastor takes that and makes you believe that this is the early church tithing. Once again, read it. Nowhere in there does he say they are tithing. They're taking up a collection. It's what I call a crowdfunding. Now, so before you go there, don't do that. That's not tithing. So let's ixnay. Stop. Don't do that. That doesn't even say tithing. Show me verbatim where it says that you have to give 10% in the new text. First do that. And then show me where it says not only do you have to give 10%, but you have to tithe 10%. Of course, don't go to Hebrews because we're getting ready to get to that. And I'm going to show you where you probably should read Hebrews to your pastor because you all believe that you're not underneath the law. So this is a very important element of that. But before we go further, I want to read something to you first and get you to clearly understand of the violation in regard to the violation that your pastor puts you in. He puts you in a place of where you're violating the statutes and commandments, and you continue to follow them, but you're reprimanded in regard to the new text that you're not supposed to do that. Either you keep them all or you don't keep any. And it's funny because every time I speak to one of you is, oh, I'm not under the law. I'm not under the law. But you tithe. And I go through this all the time. You tithe. And not only do you tithe 10%. Once again, that's not in the New Testament. There's nowhere in the New Testament that you find that they're being told to tithe. And there's nowhere in the New Testament where they're told to give 10%. But you're not under the law. But I want to read something to you. We're going to start here at, we're going to start in Galatians, the book of Galatians, Galatians chapter 5. Wish I had me a reader. I was just telling him, read. Let me see. Galatians, excuse me. And this is for all you Christians, because it's important for you to understand what your pastor is either ignorant, completely and totally ignorant, or he's hypocritical, or he's just a thief. I lean towards the latter of the three, that he's just a thief. Well, that he's a thief. He understands this, but he throws this out there because he's able to induce this fear factor with Malachi, which we will get into. And please don't bring Malachi into the picture. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Galatians chapter 5, 3-4 says, "For I testify again to man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the entire law. Christ has become of no effect unto you. Whosoever of you are justified by the law, you have fallen from grace." Let me read that to you again. "For I testify again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to the whole law. Christ has become no effect unto you. Whoever you are that is justified by the law, you are fallen from grace." So let me explain to you I could explain to you exactly what's going on in the book of Galatians, but there's really no need to. In this particular instance, what Rabbi Shaul was talking about, if you do one part of the law, basically, if you fall in line with this whole thing in accordance to keeping the law, you got to keep it completely and totally. Now, understanding there's no doing away with the law, and I could get into a lesson about that, but that's a little more deeper because it seems like he's contradicting himself here, which he's not. Christians just take it out of context. And it needs to be taught contextually in accordance to Hebrew culture, so you can clearly understand what the man is talking about, because he's a Pharisee. Pharisees were basically lawyers. They were very highly, highly intelligent. And Paul was writing from a perspective of being an intellectual. That's why Peter would have said, yeah, he's on point. I know it's hard for y'all to understand what he's writing, but he's just being accurate. It's hard for y'all to kind of grasp what he's talking about. But what he's saying here is that if you keep anything in regard to the law, you have to keep all of it. Because if you violate it at one point, you violate the whole thing. So you just can't do one, hence tithing, because it's nowhere in the New Testament. I'm still waiting for somebody to message me, inbox me, comment below, show me tithing in the New Testament. Show me that you have to pay 10%. But remember, your pastor says that you do not have to, you are not under the law, but you keep the law. Okay, now it's going to be 4 bullet points in this. This is going to be the first bullet point where I basically extend my challenge to anybody about this whole 10% thing in regard to the New Testament, because this is pretty much what my brother was asking me, like, why do they pay 10%? It's a ruse by the pastors that was taught to them, and it trickles down generationally. They just follow a template, and that's what it is. So this template they follow says that 10% is the amount, and they decided on this 10% like some type of. It's funny that you're going to see in the Old Testament where they were actually doing 10%, and just magically they fell into this knowledge to do 10%, but they didn't get it from there. Okay, yeah, just coincidence. But anyway, I digress on that point, and we're going to go to Galatians chapter 3 and 10, and I'm going to tell you in a second why I'm doing this. Galatians chapter 3 and 10 says, "For as many as of the works of the law are under the curse, for it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them." So understand, you kind of fall under that, y'all fall under that curse, because you're keeping part of the law by doing the 10%, because that is part of the law. But you're not under the law. It makes zero sense. But we're going to get back to that. Let's jump to James 2 and 10. James 2 and 10 says, "For whosoever shall keep the whole law, and yet offended in one point, he is guilty of all." So if you're trying to keep, because you guys are actually keeping the law by giving that 10%, you are bound to the law. Regardless how you want to see it, I'm about to take you to it. I'm showing you where the scriptures tell you that you are bound to do the entire law. You just can't jump in and say, well, we're just going to do this one thing. And then you turn around and say, well, I'm not under the law, but you turn right around and get 10%. Once again, I'm waiting for someone to collect this $500, because none of you are going to collect it, because tithing is not mentioned in the New Testament. Once again, don't go grab 2 Corinthians. That's not tithing. That's a free will offering, and I'm going to show you where that's a concept that comes out of the old text. Again, tithing is not mentioned. Tithing is mentioned one time, and it's in Hebrew. So, understanding 10% coming directly out of the Old Testament, and let's deal with that for just a second. The 10th. Let's just deal with the 10th before we get to the book of Hebrews. Let's deal with the 10th in the first place that you actually see the 10th. The first time you ever see someone mention the 10th is actually mentioning it is going to be in Genesis 14 and 20, where you see Genesis 14 and 20, if you didn't catch it. This is the first place that you're going to see anyone mention the 10th of giving everything. Now, of course, we're going to have some type of discrepancy, but I'll show you what that is in just a second. Okay. All right. It's going to be 14 and 20. And this is where Abraham would have actually given his 10% to Melchizedek. Now, do understand, once you read this, you're going to read it and say, well, it doesn't say anything about him giving 10%. But that's why we go to the book of Hebrews, because the book of Hebrews does expound on it. And most individuals as Hebrews do understand that the 10% premise. So we don't have any, issue with this particular place and people talking about the 10%, because we get it. Even though it's not mentioned here, it's mentioned later in the book of Hebrews, where they talk about, and Abraham, he gave his 10% of everything over to Melchizedek, because that is a priestly thing. That is a part of the Torah. That's a part of the commandments. Now, let me get you to understand something really quickly. The first 5 books of the Bible are totally off limits to you Christians, period. The first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, they're all off limits to you because those first 5 books are called the laws of Moses. Those first 5 books stand on their own. And this is what you reject. You say you're no longer under those precepts and premises. So anything that comes out of there, you cannot apply it to your life because it is part of the law. You say you have nothing to do with it. Your pastor continues to tell you that we are not under law. We are under grace. Fine, cool. The first 5 books are outside of what you should even care about. And this is the point. This is the purpose. This is the reason why you're so easily manipulated, because the first 5 books of the Bible are off limits to you. And understanding that this is the first place that you will see the first in regard to the 10% is with Melchizedek. Once again, it doesn't directly say in this particular instance, but it talks about him giving offering or giving a tithe to Melchizedek. In Hebrews, it says actually how much he gave. And once again, we don't, as Israelites, don't have qualms with it. The second place you will see that particular 10% being mentioned is Genesis chapter 28. Now I'm building up to something, and there's a purpose for it. So please just bear with me. Genesis chapter 28, Genesis 28 and 22. Genesis chapter 28 and 22. This has to deal with Jacob or Israel and what he said to Yahweh. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Yahweh's house or God's house. And all that you shall give me, I will surely give the 10th unto you. So this is him making the proclamation about that 10th that will be tithed via him. So understanding that this is where the whole concept comes from. It comes from the first 5 books of the Bible. It's not mentioned in the new, but you allow your pastor to take you and run you up underneath this Torah concept or the law, because this is a law. This is a commandment. I'm getting ready to show you where it's a part of the actual commandment, the laws of Moses, 10%. 10% is never mentioned in the new, even though they would have still kept that particular concept. But for the contemporary Christian, you're not supposed to pay attention to the 10th because you're not up underneath the law. So once again, show me, any of you, show me where 10% is mentioned in the New Testament. Because you all say, oh, we tithe differently now because they tithe, they were farmers. They only tithed livestock and grain and stuff and vegetables and fruit. That's what they tithe back then. See, we tithe differently today. We tithe money, which is also just, it amazes me the level of ignorance that resonates within the church community, because you will allow a pastor, because I've heard it with my own ears. I actually heard, I can't remember the guy's name. I just actually watched him maybe earlier this week or last weekend, where he actually got up and he was telling people they don't tithe, they don't do the whole 10% tithe, they don't do it, but they understand why 10% is added because to the 10% thing, but they don't do it in their community because back in the day, all Israelites tithe was livestock and vegetation. I said, man, these people are just stupid. And these are people that y'all listen to who've been learned for 10, 20, 30 years. But at the same time, you're looking at an individual like me who can take you directly to scripture, passage, verse, and show you, but you'll say, because you were incarcerated, we don't want to listen to you. We don't want to hear that, what one person called that prison religion. So, so once again, this prison teacher challenges anyone who wants to, grab hold of that and actually show me where 10% is in the new text. It's not there. So it doesn't fall underneath your new covenant principles. It doesn't fall underneath your, what do y'all call it? The laws of Christ. It doesn't fall under there. Because y'all say y'all don't have to follow the Mosaic law, y'all follow the laws of Christ. So show me where in the laws of Christ it tells you to give 10%. This is a doctrine of man. They created this. But they took it and got it from the old text, from the law, brought it to you, said it and gave it to you, and take you to Malachi and say that, oh, that's something that was just decided on because we see that Melchizedek was given 10% by Abraham. Yeah, because that was the law. That's what was supposed to happen. As being the high priest, Melchizedek was supposed to be a representation of the high priest, which a lot of Christians teach that Melchizedek was a foreshadowing or incarnation of Jesus Christ early as the high priest. And this is why Abraham did this. But that's neither here nor there. He's supposed to represent the high priesthood. And this is why he was given 10%. And this is what is in the law, that to the priesthood goes 10%. And it's not that the farmer or whoever gets 10%, but I'm not going to get caught up in that. But that's the second place where you will see the 10%. But before we get into getting into the other places that you will see the 10%, let's hit on real quick in regard to what they say in the book of Hebrews, because this is important. Because once again, you all keep giving 10%, and let's see what Hebrews says about you and 10% in tithing. Because I just read you where it tells you that you're cursed with a curse if you continue to keep the law. If you continue to keep the law and you don't keep it all, and in one place you say, no, I don't have to do that, you violate the whole thing. You fall underneath that curse. This is what you fall under now. You fall underneath the Malachi Chapter 3 thing. This is what you fall under. You fall under the curse because you keep tithing, because tithing is part of the Levitical commandment. It is part of the Mosaic commandment, But you all continue to go out because this man or this woman stands up there and tells you that you have to tithe 10%. But turns right around and tells you you're not under the law. It is fascinating to me how ignorant people are and the stuff that you will listen to. So let's get into Hebrews really quick. And then we're going to get into the free will giving. So Hebrews chapter 7, we're going to do chapter 7. I got my little cheat sheet over here. We're going to start at 2 and then we're going to read 4. My notes actually tell me to read the whole thing, but I really don't want to read the whole thing. But this is talking about Melchizedek, and the high priesthood. So we're going to start exactly how my notes have it. We'll start at 7 and 2. And verse 2 says, to whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all. So this is the only place you're going to find a 10th being spoke of in the New Testament. It's in this particular instance where where they're talking about Abraham giving the 10th to Melchizedek. Also in chapter 7, verse 4, now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave a 10th of the spoils, because that was what he was supposed to do. That was a commandment. That was a commandment. You're not commanded because you say you're not under the law, and this is the only place that you can find tithing is in the law. And once again, many of you will walk away from this and say, we ain't under the law, but you'll turn right around and you'll keep the law by tithing. But once again, you don't read the book. You just allow somebody to tell you what's in the book. Because I just read you 2 places in James and in Galatians where it tells you that, look, if you violate the law in one place, you violate it completely. And you're in complete and total violation because you're a keeper of the law. If you keep one commandment, you have to, in all actuality, attempt to keep them all. But you don't do that. You allow your pastor to say, we're not under the law, we're under grace, and then take you and turn you right around because he wants your money and scare you with Malachi Chapter 3, which we will get into. So the entire chapter of Hebrews 7, and I'm going to read a little bit of it because you actually need to hear this. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all. First, being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after also king of Salem, which is king of peace, without father, without mother, without descendant, having neither beginning nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth priest continually. Now consider how great this man was, whom even the patriarch Abraham gave a tenth of the spoils. And verily, they that are of the sons of Levi, who receive the office of priesthood, have a commandment to take their tithes of the people accordingly to the law that is of their brethren, through they come to the loins of Abraham. So let me read that to you again, because this is the only place you're going to actually get a realistic look at tithing and the tithing system. And verily, they that are of the sons of Levi. Number one, is your pastor, priest, that female standing up there, are they sons of the priest of Levi? Because that's the only person you're supposed to be tithing to. Is first a man, secondly a Levite, who received the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take the tithes of the people according to the law. Once again, tithing is a commandment. This is why 2 Corinthians is not tithing. It is not tithing. He did not go around and ask them. Paul did not ask them in 2 Corinthians 8:9. He didn't say, hey, we're coming around to get the tithes. He talked about Yahweh loving a cheerful giver. Give in accordance to what you have and what your heart desires. Tithing is a set standard. It's not telling you to give more, and it's not telling you to give less. So understand that. So there's a set number on the tithe. So he doesn't say give more. He doesn't tell this person over here to give 1,000. He doesn't tell this person over here to give 5. He doesn't tell that person over there to give 50. It's a set number in regard to what you're supposed to give as a tithe. But he who descended is not counted from them received tithes of Abraham, and blessed him and had the promise. And without all contradiction, the less is blessed of the better. And here men that die receive tithes, but there he receiveth them, of whom he is witness that he liveth. And as I may say so, Levi also, who receives tithes, pays tithes in Abraham. So let's just stop right there, because this is just so ridiculous that y'all don't read. And right here, it's telling you that it's only one group of people who receive tithes. This is the priesthood. This is an Old Testament or first 5 books of the Bible concept that you won't find in the New. Once again, show me where it says tithes in the New Testament. Show me where there's 10% attached to it. That's the only place you're going to find it. And this person, whoever this author is, because they can't decide on whether it's Rabbi Shaul, Paul, or somebody else, whoever wrote this is telling you in perfect context that, hey, listen, this is what the tithes were about. This is why we tithed. We tithed to the priesthood. There was a set standard to it, and this is what it was. It was a tenth. They received a tenth. The Levites received a tenth off of any tithe. Now, once again, it wasn't that you just took 10% in. The Levites received 10% off of whatever tithe was given. So if a bull was given, just say, for instance, I'm just throwing this out. If a bull was given, the Levites got 10% of that, and it was broken down and passed down. The tithes are a bit complicated, but that's how it works. So it went directly to the Levitical priesthood. Tithes were not given in the New text, even though we know it was a concept that would have been traditionally followed, but there was no Levitical priesthood, so there was no need actually for tithing. Free will giving was pretty much the standard, which is what we will get into right now. I want to get into the free will giving aspect of it, and we will jump back and forth to the 10th, and I'll show you in the Levitical priesthood where they were commanded to take a tenth of everything when it was given. But let's get into this particular part, what I like to call crowdfunding, which you guys would actually see in the New Testament. And the first place I want to go actually is 2 Corinthians, but let's stop and let's go to Acts first. And I want to show you something in Acts that a lot of you don't pay attention to. Some have, but for the most part you don't. And this would have been a crowdfunding thing that would have existed in the New text, but this particular concept was practiced anytime a new community was constructed. There was a mass offering collected in accordance to whatever a person wanted to give. Not that they were forced to give a certain thing. This was not a tithe. There is a difference between a tithe, because it says tithe, and then a free will offering. Matter of fact, let's go to 2 Corinthians first, so I can show you the difference. Where so you don't have to think about it. It's there, where actually Paul tells them, and I will take you exactly to where that is in the Old. So we're going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 8. No, we're going to go to 9 first, because this is chapter 9 is actually titled Free and Cheerful Giving. And I want to jump straight to that part, but you understand what's happening here in chapter 8 and 9. What they're doing is they're taking up an offering or a charitable donation that's going to go to one of the poorer churches. That's a really good church, but they're a poorer church. So they're going from place to place, and I believe it was Titus. I want to say it was Titus. And abundantly, I believe it was Titus. I'll run across his name, but I'm pretty sure it was Titus that that they were actually sending. Yeah, it was Titus. Titus was actually the one that they were sending. He was going from church to church, receiving these collections that they were going to give to another church that was a bit more impoverished. Now let's get to the point that I wanted you to see, because you have to understand that your pastor wants you to believe that this is tithing and this represents tithing, which it doesn't. And I'm going to show you in the Old Testament. So, bound therefore notice that we're going to start at chapter 9 of verse 6, 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 6. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he that soweth bountifully shall also reap bountifully. Every man according as he purposes in his heart. So let him give not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. So I just love reading this stuff, man, and just thinking that I don't know. It's just, to me, I find it remarkable how someone can, but I get it, because I used to be a Christian, how someone can read this to you and say, oh, yeah, that when we tithe, we really gotta give, man. You know what I'm saying? We gotta give. And it's funny that they don't keep you at the 10% thing. They tell you 10% is the starting point, but you can give more. And that's not how it works. Tithing anyway, they took it and made it and twisted it. Like I say, tithing has a set ceiling to it. But they take it and make it, just run with it and say, see, he loves a cheerful giver. It starts at 10%, but you can go up as high as you want. This is not that. This is a free will offering. Once again, if you read this in its totality, you will not see anywhere where the man says a tithe is being collected. He said God loves a cheerful giver, someone who will give willingly and freely. So understand, let's go to where I was telling you that you actually see the first actual free will giving. And this occurred when they first came out of when Hebrews first came out of Egypt. The first free will offering would have been taken up when they first came out, and Yahweh has spoken to Moses. And the same thing you will see in Acts that is established and happens. There is a free will offering. But they make you think that's something different as well. They talk about it's a vow of poverty that everybody took. They got rid of all their stuff, and then they reinforced that by saying that Jesus said to the rich young ruler to sell everything he had. No, that's not what he meant when he was talking to the rich young ruler. He didn't mean that, but y'all were able to take it and say, oh, see, that's a vow of poverty. You have to do that. No, he actually wanted the rich young ruler just to really pretty much see where he was at in his heart, that you were doing all this stuff, but you weren't doing it for me. You were doing it because it was something that you wanted. You weren't doing it because you were actually following me. Now, if you're actually following me, what I tell you to do is sell everything and follow me. And the rich young ruler looked around and slunk off somewhere. And the lesson in that is, see, his heart really wasn't with me. It's with those possessions. And this is why he didn't do that. He didn't tell you to take a vow of poverty. None of the individuals he didn't tell anybody else that. that was the only person because he was trying to teach him something. Now in the book of Acts, you also see where everyone had taken all that they owned and set it at the feet of the apostles, which is another place where they used to try to reinforce a vow of poverty. But we'll get to that in just a second. And let's read this Exodus chapter 25, where you see the first free will offering being administered. And Yahweh says, and Yahweh spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth it willing with his heart. You shall take my offering. Hold on, let me read that again. Spoke unto Moses, he told Moses, speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth willingly with his heart. You shall take an offering. So this was something that was not, he didn't say, hey, look, everybody got to give on this. He said, everybody who is willing to do this, tell them this is what's needed in regard to what this particular project that we're getting ready to undertake, which was the building of the tent of covenant, of the tent of meeting, and all the things that were to go inside, the curtains, all the stuff that was supposed to, the candlesticks, golden candlesticks, everything that was supposed to be built and to go into there. There was a free will offering that was being made to undertake this particular project. So let's bounce over real quick because I want you to hear something. To Exodus, to really solidify my point. Exodus 36, 3 through 7. Exodus 36, 3 through 7. Exodus 36, 3 through 7 says, and they received of Moses all the offerings which the children of Israel had brought of the work of the service of the sanctuary to make it withal. And they brought yet unto him free offerings every morning. This is what this was. This is what was going on in Corinth. This is why he said Yahweh loves a cheerful giver. It was a free will offering that was being made in 2 Corinthians. This was not tithing. So while your pastor continues to tell you, use 2 Corinthians and say Yahweh loves, God loves a free, cheerful giver. Yeah, he does. When something's going on that needs to be handled, but they take that and apply it to tithing, which doesn't fit. There's a ceiling to tithing. So understand that he has set a ceiling in regard to everything dealing with him. You can't come in if he says he requires two lambs for something. You bring in 15. That's not how that goes. You bring in exactly what he has recommended. Look, this is what you bring for this purpose. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you want to do something extra as an offering to the priesthood, that's different. But stop making it about tithing, because the tithing principle comes straight out of the Old Testament. So let's get back to this reading. And all the wise men wrought the work of the sanctuary, came every man from his work which they made. And they spake unto Moses, saying, the people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which the Lord commanded to make. And Moses gave commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, let neither man nor woman make any more work of the offering of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from bringing, for all the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work and to make it, and much more. Now, they didn't take the excess, the overflow in regard to these offerings that were being made and go get Moses a fancy new chariot and some new digs and a new place to stay. They didn't do that. That was put into the storehouse, which we will get into next week once we go into breaking down the storehouse, tithing, and all those particular principles and how we can make them applicable to ourselves today. This was the overflow, which the overflow would have been placed in there. Now, this stuff that was brought in was used not only to get and purchase, not purchase, but those were offerings already, but to pay those individuals who were going to be in service of sewing, designing, crafting. You had these people who were going to do this, and you had to have a means to pay them as well. So you had to have, so what was being created at this particular time was a financial structure. Because now you take the overflow, you put it to the side, you put it in the storehouse, which we could look at as a bank. You put it in the storehouse, which could be looked at as a bank, and that can be drawn out anytime and given whenever there is a need. You understand what I'm saying? This is what was important about the storehouse. The storehouse would have basically been a bank for Israel, for times of need. But this is the first place that you see this free will offering to undertake any type of building project they had. This would have been the time and the place where it would have been done. Book of Acts. I'm not going to read it for you because I'm running a little long. I wanted to make this one shorter. The book of Acts, chapter 4, 32 through 37, you see the Ananias and Sapphira situation. Now, how do we know that this was a free will offering, that everybody didn't have to come and get everything? Because Peter would have told, or Kepha, Peter would have told the wife when she came, said, hey, listen, y'all didn't have to, nobody said that you had to give everything. You could have gave whatever you, free will offering. This is the same place. This is what happens when Israelites go out and start different communities. You have to separate them. See, a tithe and an offering is different. Offering you could just give as your heart desires. So if I come with a tithe of 2 sheep, this is what it is recommended. Now the offering is the 10. That's a free will offering that I'm just giving. Hey man, look, this for y'all brothers. That's an offering that I'm making, a donation or what have you. There's a difference, and the church knows this, but they continue to draw in the tithe and the 10%, which is an Old Testament staple. You get that from the old text. Let's hit that real quick. Now, understand this is the modern day crowdfunding that you see here, which would have happened in the book of Acts when everybody brought everything they owned and set it at the feet of the apostles, because what they were doing were they were building a community strictly for themselves. This is the importance of this offering that was being made, because everyone was taking and giving as they had. Just like in 2 Corinthians, where they said Yahweh loves a cheerful giver. I just read that to you out of this Exodus. This is where this principle comes from. Give as much as you possibly can, because we're using it to, in 2 Corinthians, we're using it to feed another church who doesn't have as much, and we're using it to give to impoverished people. Next, you go back to Egypt when it first left from captivity. The first thing Yahweh would have put down was saying, hey, everybody who wants to give, allow them to give. This is the purpose. This is going to be the first undertaking that we put down. This is going to be the first actual structure that we're going to make. We're going to employ people. We're getting ready to start an economic system, and the overflow was taken and put it in the surplus to use later. Once again, it wasn't taken and divided up amongst the heads and the leaders, and the deacons got a little bit, and the preacher got 75% of it and spread out between the deacons. No, it didn't work that way. It was put to the side. Understand that particular pot was drawn from whenever they needed maintenance on the tent, not to pay the pastor, the Levites. They got theirs when things were offered. They got a 10th off of things as they were offered. And I don't want to do too much of a deep dive into that to lose you. My point of making this video is, once again, to challenge anyone who says that you have to tithe 10% in contemporary Christianity, where nowhere in the New Testament. I just read you from Hebrews where he told you this is what the whole tithe thing was about for the Levites. This is why this was done. This is why Abraham did it with Yeshua or Jesus, because he would later become the high priest. So it was fitting for him to do that, because he would be later known as the high priest. But it was only done with the priesthood. First off, T.D. Jakes is not of the high priesthood. Creflo Dollar, with all his Rolexes that you can't see in, that he boasts about, got so much ice that you can't see the clock moving. He boasts about that. He's not a part of the Levitical priesthood, so you're not bound to tithe to him. That's first. Secondly, there's no 10% in the New Text. You're not told in your New Testament to give 10% or even tithes. So once again, when they ask you for tithes, they take you right back to the first 5 books of the Bible. Really quickly, they take you right back and stick you under the law. They take you back to Numbers. I just gave you Genesis, where Abraham gave a 10th. I just take you to Genesis, where Yisrael or Jacob gave a tenth or promised Yahweh, out of everything I have, I'll give you a tenth, because this was the commandment. Numbers 18:26, Numbers 18 and 26, you will see a tenth being commanded by Yahweh for the Levitical priesthood to draw out. 28 and 5, law. This is the law. 28 and 5, Numbers 28 and 5, you will see a tenth being recommended once again, or told by the priesthood, that they could have this. Leviticus 5 and 11 as well. You see this exact same principle being applied. And I won't read those. I'll let you read them in your own time, leisure. And I only make these videos on the Shabbat once again. So if you don't have anything to study, you don't have anyone to fall underneath, that you can log in, tune in, and just have you something to flip through, study, and learn off of as you're enjoying and resting and enjoying the Shabbat. So a tenth is never mentioned in the New. Tithing is never mentioned in the New. It's only mentioned in the Old. And it's in the first 5 books. But my question to you is, once again, either you're a keeper of the law or you're not. If you go into that church and you tithe and you give 10%, you fall underneath the law. So because they take you straight to Malachi. And I'm not going to do Malachi yet. I want to hit y'all with something else that I really, in regard to crowdfunding once again. If this was a particular principle that we would practice, because the European Jew practices it right out of Torah, they understand the tithing system. They understand the free will offering. They understand the establishment of a new community and what they need to do. So what they do every time that they look to set up a new community, they start what is called a Gamech. Now, I might be saying it wrong. It's Gameh, I believe, where they first set aside a piece of their money, and then they start taking offerings and from other people, and they build up their money, and then they build a synagogue and build around that, where they buy all the structures around it, and they end up owning a whole neighborhood. But they already have a financial foundation because they have donors and backers giving to what it is that they are doing. So they all pool their resources, whether they live in California and this community is starting in New York, whether they live in Israel and this place is starting in Jersey. They send money because we're going to start another community. We're going to safely provide for our own. And this is why they have such financial success, because they take care of each other and they use this principle out of Torah. Any overflow doesn't go to the rabbi. That overflow goes into the storehouse for that community. Or if another community calls and asks for service, this is what 2 Corinthians would have been about, where they went around and they accepted free will offerings. Titus would have been the one that was going around collecting this money. So once again, because I'm going to jump into Malachi, because this is where, no, actually, I forgot one thing, just not crops. Because I made mention of this. Now, I want to show you something, because a lot of you say, oh, we don't do it that way, because how they did it, they were just tithing crops, and they were just tithing animals and things like that. They were tithing that. Okay. I'm going to kill that right quick and move into it, because the level of ignorance when I hear that, because you do understand that everybody in Israel wasn't farmers. Not everybody in Israel was farmers. You had businessmen. You had a lot of different people. You had merchants. You had people that used to sail abroad and come back and sell merchandise that they had encountered. You had a litany of different, I mean, even your Jesus was a carpenter. He was a carpenter. He wasn't a farmer, but y'all make it as if everybody in Israel was farmers. And that's one of the things that tickles me when I hear, oh yeah, they were tithing. So, okay, let me ask you something. Where did, when Yeshua went to keep the Passover, because he wasn't a farmer, where did he get, his lamb to keep the Passover? Because he had to get a lamb. And not being a farmer, he had to get it from somewhere. This is my point. Everybody wasn't farmers, and y'all make the tithing principle to rotate around strictly around farmers. Okay, I'm going to show you that it just wasn't livestock and grain that they were contributing or tithing. First place you need to go is Exodus chapter 30. Go to Exodus chapter 30, 11 through 16. And once again, it fascinates me to no end how a person can get up there and you just listen to them. They'll show you a passage and you listen to them and say, yeah, the brother right there, go right there. There you go. That's not how you are supposed to do that. You're supposed to thoroughly. It talks about each man giving account of his own salvation, which with fear and trembling. Listen, you have to give an account. You can't just sit there and listen to this person, man. Study to show thyself approved. All of this is in the book. So when you hear something from him, you need to fall in the rabbit holes. Okay, is there absolute truth behind this? Take it, get your concordance, Google it, sit and just see how many different ways it goes, cross-reference, do all that to make sure that what he's saying, test it. Test the validity of what he's saying. Because like I told you, I heard a pastor, I can't remember what his name was, stand up there and say, oh yeah, we don't do it that way because, and once again, my brother came to me because somebody told him to say, oh yeah, we changed things. Things have changed because see, they used to just tithe grain and, livestock and stuff. Okay, tell me what's these two tithes about right here. Okay, this particular one comes out of Exodus chapter 30, 11 through 16. Exodus 30, 11 through 16. Now, this is a tax that's being levied on the people in regard to the making of this particular temple. This is a tax, but this is something that is given every year. And I'll show you that in another place. But this is a tithe that actually they call it a tax. I call it more along the lines of a tithe, but this is what they put in there as a description. And it's more along the lines of a tithe because of what's done every year. It's done annually. So it says, and Yahweh spoke unto Moses saying, when you take the sum of the children of Israel after their number, then shall you give every man a ransom for his soul unto the Lord. When you number them, that means there's a census every year that's taken. This is why David got in trouble, because he wasn't supposed to take a census. There's a census that's already taken. And when the census is taken, every male is to go up to Jerusalem, and this tithe is taken. Or this taxation for what they say in this Bible, but this tithe is taken. When you take of the sum of the children of Israel after their number, then you shall they give every man a ransom for his soul unto the Lord when you number them, that there be no plague amongst them when you number them. This they shall give every one that passes amongst them that are numbered half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary. A shekel is 20 garas. A half a shekel shall be the offering of the Lord. Everyone that passes amongst them are to be numbered from 20 years old and above shall give an offering unto the Lord. The rich shall not give, and this is where I was telling you, there's no standard between rich and poor in regard to these. There's no sliding scale. You're poor, so you don't have to give that much. You're rich, you have to give more. No. It says, the rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than a half a shekel when they give an offering unto the Lord to make an atonement for your souls. And you shall take the atonement money of the children of Israel, and you shall appoint it for the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, that it may be a memorial unto the children of Israel before Yahweh to make an atonement for your souls. So every year this is taken. This census is taken. They go up, they give this money. It's not a sliding scale. It's one set amount. It doesn't vary. And this is given. And once again, it tells you exactly what it's used for. This is not used to go get the pastor a Bentley. You don't take this to go get the pastor a Bentley. Now remember, all tithes are done at different times. They're all like that, and I'll get into that next week. But remember, in this particular instance, remember all y'all kept saying, y'all, oh, they do differently because they were just farmers. And no, this says bring some money. Bring that money up here, give it up, and this is what it's going to be used for. 3 different things was occurring. First, there was a numbering of the amount of able-bodied men from 21 up, able-bodied men. So that was first, enumerating of how many, because whenever you see the number of Israelites being given, they only count the men. When they say 60,000 men, also children and women, but they count the men. These are the ones who are counted, not the women, not the children. The men had to come up and make this particular tithe or offering, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't no grain, farm good. It was cash. Get them shekels up here, man, and put them up in there. And that's going to be you. Don't touch it. Creflo Dollar, don't touch that. That's going to that. It was never meant for them. They had different things that were given to them for different reasons. This was one of those things that was taken and utilized for the upkeep of the sanctuary. Every year this was done. That's one instance. Just to debunk this whole thing, the only reason that they made, the reason that the tithe changed is because all they had was grain and animals. Y'all, that's the most ignorant, foolish, stupid, because you don't read. You don't read. I'm reading to you right now another place where they're telling you and explaining to you where the people had to bring money. Now, let me show you another tithe. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 14. And once again, like I say, you might not call that a tithe. Like in my Bible is headed as a taxation. Whatever you would like to call it, that's fine with me. But once again, these things were not limited to just grain and all that type of stuff. So we're in Deuteronomy 14. We're going to read 22 to 29. Deuteronomy 14, 22 through 29. Excuse me. You shall truly tithe all the increase of your seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year. And you shall eat before Yahweh your deity, or Yahweh your God, in the place which he has chose to place his name there, the tithe of the corn, of the wine, and of the oil, and the firstlings of the herd and of the flocks. And there mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. So let me stop right there, because a lot of you going to say, well, see, that's all he's asking for. That's all he's asking for. No. Once again, not everybody was farmers. So how does that exempt that person who's not a farmer? He's a businessman. He's a landlord. He owns properties and he leases them out, because they were able to do that. He was a seamstress. He laid brick. He built houses. He whatever he did. If he was not a farmer, how did he pay his tithes? Because there were just not all farmers in Israel. That pisses me off. And he's telling you here in just a second, but he's telling them nobody is exempt from this. This is what he's telling them. That's why he named everything. Grain, oil, wine, I don't care what you got going on. You bring it. You bring it now. And if the way be too long for thee, so you are not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from you, which the Lord your God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord your God has blessed you, then shall you turn it into money, and bind up the money in your hand, and shall go into the place which the Lord your God shall choose, and you shall bestow that money for whatever your soul lust after, for oxen, for sheep, for wine, for strong drink, or for whatever your soul desire. And you shall eat there before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, and you and your household, and the Levite that is within your gate, and you shall not forsake him, for he has no part in the inheritance with you. At the end of 3 years, you shall bring forth all the tithes of your increase the same year, and you shall lay it upon the gates. And the Levite, because he has no part of inheritances, and the strong and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow which are within your gates shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, and the Lord your God shall bless you and the work of all your hand which you do. So let's go back up. This is a whole other tithe here. Understand. At the end of 3 years, so this is a whole separate tithe. This is not every Sunday. This is not once a month. At the end of 3 years, you shall bring forth all the tithe of your increase the same year. That means everybody does this. And you shall lay it within the gates. Okay, stop. And at the end of 3 years, you shall bring forth the increase, bring forth all the tithe of the increase in the same year. Did he just specify goats and sheep? He said your increase. So if you're a businessman, you are still tied to this. This is what if you're a businessman, if you're a merchant, if you're a used car salesman, a used goat salesman, used donkey salesman, I don't care what you were doing. This is why it blows my mind that I hear people say stuff like that. I'm like, you act like everybody in Israel was farmers. What about the businessman? Is he exempt from the tithing when he said everybody has to do it? No, he's specifying, he's telling you, out of your increase, it doesn't matter what you do. Out of your increase, you have to do this. He didn't just specify in this particular instance that it was farmers. We're just taxing farmers. So just bring the rice, the grain, a donkey, whatever you want. And also, he expresses to you and explains to you that if you don't want to bring all that stuff all the way up, because it's Jerusalem that he's talking about that you have to go to just make this particular tithe, the other tithe that I was just talking about, that you can sell it. You don't have to bring this stuff. You don't have to actually bring that. That's what is so perplexing to me, that you all sit and you think, because somebody behind the pulpit is telling you that tithing was just limited to apples and oranges and goats. It's not. It's not. And he tells you that, hey, look, if you don't want to carry all that stuff up, would you just sell it there and bring the money? So it's just not limited to that. You could bring some dinero, you could bring some shekels up there, man. There wasn't nothing wrong with that. But if you found that you wanted to bring, the livestock, the herd, the 10% out of everything, or the percentage, that particular, because all tithes didn't have the same percentage points to it. So if that particular tithe, you felt like you wanted to bring some stuff with you and deliver it to them, that was fine. And that was permissible. But at the same time, if you didn't, you could sell it. And you could do whatever you wanted to do when you got up there. So that right there is me just showing you that it's just not about crops. So get that out of your head. Tithing was just not about crops. Tithing was actually about shekels, which was money. It was gold and silver. You had different amounts of shekels. You know what I'm saying? That was their currency. That was their form of currency. It was like the dollar bills today. That's what shekels were to them. And you had different weights, you had different sizes, you had different types. So it's like it was like nickel, pennies, quarters, dollar bill, $5 bill, $10 bills. Shekels came in different weights, amounts. And understanding that tithing just was not, once again, it wasn't just limited to that. So when your pastor stands up there and tells you, oh, well, see, we tithe differently because all they did was, no, they didn't, man. Stop the lies. That's a lie straight from the pits of hell. That's because he know that you're not going to go and read it. You're going to listen to them. You're going to say, that's all they do is tithe sheep and goats. Go in there and read. That's all it takes. Take you a few seconds to read those two places I just gave you. Now let's do Malachi right quick, because I just want to read Malachi to you. And you see me turning this. This is where my notes are. My wife bought me a fancy dancy little stand this week for not just that, but just everything in general. And I wanted to read Malachi 3. And I am actually going to read Malachi 3 at the top of next week's lesson. If you all want to come back, next week's lesson is going to be less about talking to the Christians and speaking to those who actually want to know how the tithing system worked, and actually learning how, if implemented today, like the European Ashkenazi Jew does, that it could actually help us. It could help us, actually. we could flourish. But it would take for everybody, well, not everybody to get on board, but, everybody would have to kind of be on the same page in regard to it if they wanted to do it. But let's go to Malachi Chapter 3, this whole thing about robbing God, man. And it's fascinating to me how you all allow your pastor to first tell you that you're not under the law, then turn around and take you right back to the law and place you under the law and say you got to tithe and you got to do 10%. I just showed you where the 10% principle came from. It came from the first 5 books of the Bible. Once again, let me give them to you again, just in case you want to go check them out. So you don't say, well, I didn't see. It starts in Genesis chapter 14 and 20, Genesis 28 and 22. Then you go to Numbers 18 and 26, Numbers 28 and 5, and Leviticus 5 and 11. This is where you see some instances of the 10%. Now, once again, I ask you, because those are Levitical commandments or Mosaic commandments out of the first 5 books. Show me in the new that $500 is still hanging out there. Show me in the new where you were told to tithe, first off. Number 2, where you're told to tithe 10%. They got it from the Old Testament. And they just brought it to you and said, hey, look, this is what we do as Christians. We don't do the old stuff that Yes, they do. They do exactly what we did. And it's funny because the way that they give it to you is they say that, oh, no, they were tithing chickens and goats and herbs and everything. No, I just showed you where Yahweh said, look, if you don't want to take all that stuff up there, man, just change it into money and bring the money up. We accept money too here. So I'm sorry, it cracks me up. These people really crack me up, man, because they allow somebody to stand behind that podium and just tell them anything, and they run with it. I guess I'm just cut from a different type of cloth where I go and study. But anyway, I digress on that point, and I get to Malachi Chapter 3. And I want to read Malachi Chapter 3 in part because this is what your pastors use to scare you to death, to make you give them 10%. So I'm going to start from verse 1, and I'm just going to read it through, and I'm going to stop randomly and just ask you your opinion. Behold, I will send, this is Malachi chapter 3, starting in verse 1. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom you seek shall come to the temple, even the messenger of the covenant whom you delight, and behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. And he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purify them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old, and as in the former years. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his rights, and fear me not, saith the Lord of hosts. First, who is he talking to? Now, put a pin in verse 5, actually just verse 5. Put a pin in verse 5 because we're going to revisit that. So, who is he talking to first? I didn't hear him mention any Christians at all. Period. I didn't hear him mention Christianity at all. I didn't hear him mention any Europeans. I didn't hear him mention any Africans. I didn't hear him mention any of those people. But I did hear him mention the Levites, Judah, and Jerusalem. So this is who he's speaking to when he's talking about, when he's expounding in regard, or he's narrating in here in Malachi chapter 3. So he's not talking to you Christians. So y'all don't have to be scared anymore about this whole tithing premise. He's not talking to you first and foremost. He's talking to the Israelites. So, I mean, clearly, if you start from the beginning, like I tell people every time they come to me with this, well, what are they talking about in Malachi chapter 3? Read the whole thing. Simple. Read it. First, he's not talking to y'all. He's talking to the Israelites because he named them. Now, if you want to get into the replacement theology, shoot it out there. I'm locked and loaded for that. So you want to get into the replacement theology, shoot it. We can go round and round about it. I've dealt with that on many occasions. And right now, he's not talking to any Christian. He's talking to Israel, period. Now, remember, put a pin in verse 5. It's important. For I am, verse 6, for I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, you, the sons of Jacob, are not consumed. Not the church, not the Christians. He's not talking about the ecclesia, even though he is talking about the ecclesia. But not the ecclesia in the contemporary sense that you think. He's talking to Jacob, the children of Jacob. He's talking about the 12 tribes. He's talking about Israel is not consumed. Even from the days of your fathers have you gone away from my ordinances. What are ordinances? So you got to start from the top. What are ordinances? Those are all the rules and regulations. This is what he's talking about. He's talking about everything. And if you go back up to verse 5, he gives you an example of the people that he is going to punish. They keep pointing at tithing, but he's telling you about all the people he's going to punish. Once I come back, these are the people I'm going to punish. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, not just the people who are missing their tithes, and against the adulterers, not just the titheless, and against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling and his wages. That's a law. And the widow, that's a law. Mosaic commandment, chapter, first 5 books. And the fatherless, and that turn aside from the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord of hosts. All of those fall within the first 5 books of the Bible. It's in the law of Moses. Then he goes down, for I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore the sons of Jacob are not consumed. Even in the days of the fathers where you've gone away from my ordinances, the things I just read to you in verse 5, are the ordinances. These are the rules and regulations, not the ordinances per se, but these are the commandments. These are the things he's telling them that they went away from. Now, the ordinances would definitely be different because I know I probably have an educated Israelite saying, nah, he's a little bit wrong there. But I do understand what the ordinances are. But for the sake of educating the people right now, I apologize to you and just continue to say along the line of ordinances instead of separating the two, which I will do in a later lesson. Promise. I'm just going to categorize all the commandments as ordinances, even though they're 2 different groupings. And we'll get into that later. They all fall in the Mosaic commandment. All of them do. So even from the days of your father, you have gone away from my ordinances and you have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, says the Lord of hosts. But you said, wherein shall I return? Will a man, this is where they always start. Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, wherein have we robbed you? Now remember, he said, where will I start? Because I've gone astray. So how do I get back on path? This is Judah or the Israelites speaking to Yahweh. And this is fascinating. I'm going to show you something. I've gone astray. So where do I start getting back on track? He said, even from the days of your fathers, you have gone away from my ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, say the Lord of hosts. But you said, wherein shall we return? Where do we start? Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, wherein have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. So they're asking, at what place do we start to get back on track here as Israel? Because we've lost our way. You're reestablishing this here in chapter 3. Where do we go to start? He said, start here. Remember what's fascinating is when they got their liberty 2 different times. The first time when they came out of Egypt, first thing they did was what? Gave a free will offering. Because it is that financial foundation to start building things, to start to surplus stuff for people who need, being able to pay for the labor that people are going to put forth. There's a free will offering. So he said, the first place you need to start is this. You've already robbed me. You didn't took everything else away from me. You stopped doing all these things. They said, well, how do we get back on track, Yahweh? And he said, Yet you have robbed me, but you say, wherein have you robbed me? In my tithes and offerings. Get these together first. Start there. You need to get your financial situation started. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring you all the tithes into the storehouse. What have I been talking about? The free will offering goes where? It goes into the projects, and the rest goes where? Into the storehouse. It don't go in the preacher's pocket. But you're cursed with a curse, not just because you haven't been tithing, Israel. You're cursed with a curse because you have rejected all of his ordinances, all of his commandments. You don't keep the holy days, which is the ordinances. You don't keep the commandments, which are the ones, doing this, eating pork, doing that, whatever you're going to do. So remember, he's talking to Israel. He's not talking to any Christians. So I'll talk to you right now, Israel. And he's saying, look, this is where you need to start. Start by taking up an offering. Get everything together and then fill up my storehouse, man. Because y'all need a financial structure, a financial foundation first. Before you strike out, you got to have something to work with, man. You just can't, when he left out of Egypt, they didn't just leave out of Egypt. What happened? They plundered all of Egypt. Everybody in Egypt gave to them and made them wealthy. So when they came out, and Yahweh said, hey, Yahweh wasn't just speaking from not knowing that they didn't have anything. He made that occur. So he knew that they have it. Anybody who has a heart to give, tell them to give. Same thing here. He's saying, look, you want to start, you want to get back on track. First thing you need to do is fill up the storehouse. This is the first thing. Fill up the storehouse, man. Once again, bring all of your tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. And provide me now, wherein, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that you shall not have enough room to receive. It's simple. First, Christians, turn this video off because this doesn't even apply to you. I'm done with y'all because you can read that and you will let somebody manipulate you into thinking that you're robbing God by not tithing. Even though you read the whole thing, he tells you what you're doing wrong all the way through it, but it doesn't have anything to do with you. He's talking to Israel. So y'all tune out, and I'm going to talk to Israel right now. Listen, he's explaining to you, if you want to get back on track, if you're looking and you're saying, hey, okay, where's the first place we start? How do we get it? He said, this is what you need to do. You've already violated. You're not doing anything else. You want to get back on track. First thing y'all need to do is fill this storehouse up. Get this together. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to bless you. And it's not because you filled up the storehouse. Now you look up and there's stuff falling out the sky. You filled up the storehouse. So now you have room when he opens up doors for you to go secure this land, to go do this. You got the funds. You got the means to do it. You want to build something. You want to build a structure to worship. You got the funds. You got the means to do it because you filled up the storehouse. Now you got the ability to pay your people, your brothers and sisters, to build, to do this, to do that. This is what he's talking about when he talks about that particular part. Christians, stop letting the pastor get up there and tell you that now see, this is what he's talking about. See, you're robbing him. And you, no. So Israel, now I want to you because they can't even come and secure this $500. Ain't none of them going to be able to secure that $500 because they pastor keep telling them they're not under the law. And he turns around and sends them right back under the law when he collects that 10% tithe. Shoots them straight back under the law. And it's hilarious to me and asinine. And then I switch to us and it's goofy. Because we have the blueprint right in here, but we refuse to grab hold of the blueprint and allow it to work for us. We're so busy trying to one-up each other that we refuse to fill the storehouse, start in one area, and to flourish. And he said, hey, I got the blueprint for you. All you got to do is do it. So anyway, I'm going to shut this one down for today. Like I said, I'm going to start at that same spot, Malachi Chapter 3, next week. And we're going to jump into the storehouse. We're going to jump into showing how the crowdfunding works, how the European uses it today, and also how the banking system works in regard to the storehouse and how it works in regard to the Israelites. But until then, man, you know where it is, man. It's Hebron ben Bilal. Man, when you Christians inbox me, man, to get this $500, yeah, all right. If you like this content, man, go to the YouTube channel, the Remnant of the House of Israel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you want to go onto the Facebook page and also join the Remnant of the House of Israel on Facebook, do so. Send a request. We're going to vet you because we're just not letting anybody on there. We're going to vet you beforehand. If you fit the criteria, we'll let you on, man. And it's not really much to see on there. These lessons, we have some previous lessons. We're going to continue to contextually fill up this thing and just open some doors for some different things, man. But I enjoyed this lesson today. I enjoyed coming to y'all on this Shabbat. Hopefully this gave you something to sit and just watch throughout your day, maybe even tomorrow on your off day. I love y'all. Look forward to next Shabbat to come with another lesson and enjoy your day. All right. Shabbat shalom.